Chosen one, there was a time when the flame inside you raged without direction. You felt it stir in your chest, coil in your spine, dance in your thoughts at the wrong times, in the wrong ways, for the wrong reasons. That energy was real. It was power, but it had no guide. It burned not because it was evil, but because it was unclaimed. You feared it, then you fed it, then you tried to silence it. But none of those were the answer. You tried to mimic what others called strength, letting your fire flash to impress, to dominate, to conquer. And each time it left you emptier than before. Because deep down, you knew your energy was meant for something more. Something sacred, something transformative, something whole. The path you walked to reach this point was not made of pleasure, it was carved by pain. You had to sit in the heat of your own unspoken needs and unmet desires until you no longer feared what they revealed. You didn't numb the fire, you faced it. You stopped chasing shadows and started honoring the flame. And it changed you. It refined you, like steel in a forge, like gold in the crucible. It burned away every lie you inherited about what it means to be a man. It consumed every illusion you wore to impress a world that never truly saw you. It left you raw, but not ruined. Humbled, but not hollow. And in the stillness that followed, something ancient woke up in you. Something you couldn't name then, but can stand in now. Now your fire no longer seeks destruction. It offers invitation. It moves through your eyes when you listen. It glows behind your words when you speak with integrity. It wraps around your presence like a quiet sun, not one that scorches, but one that warms. And people feel it. Women feel it first. Not in lust, but in a ripple across their intuition. It's not about what you do, it's about what you no longer need to do. You don't reach, you don't pull. You simply exist, and the fire moves through you in sacred rhythm, neither suppressed nor unleashed, but aligned. This alignment cannot be faked. It cannot be forced. It can only be lived, one breath at a time, one inner choice at a time, one silent refusal to betray your own truth at a time. And so when people stand near you now, they sense something they cannot explain. Their breath catches, their thoughts blur, their defenses pause, because you are no longer scattered, you are focused. You are no longer chasing heat, you are the warmth. They feel the heat of your presence, but they do not fear it. They feel the power in your gaze, but it does not press. They feel the possibility in your nearness, but it doesn't pretend. You have become fire without harm, heat without hunger, power without posture. You have not lost your fire, chosen one. You have refined it. You are the flame that no longer burns you, and that is why they are drawn to you now. Not because you ignite desire by manipulation, but because your very being reminds them of something holy, something raw, something real. You are not the spark, you are the torch. And those who walk beside you feel safer simply because your fire is not in your hands, it is in your presence. You do not fear your fire anymore. That is why they trust it. And in a world full of men who burn out or burn others, that alone makes you unforgettable. Chosen one, you are no longer noisy in your power. You are electric. There is a quiet voltage pulsing beneath your skin now. Not the frantic charge of desire ungoverned, but the controlled hum of a man in alignment. You don't speak as much as you once did. You don't need to. You don't explain your presence anymore. It speaks for itself. You walk into a space, and energy shifts before your lips part. Not because you demand attention, but because something in the room recognizes something in you. A man who has returned home to himself. You used to burn your energy trying to be seen. Now you conserve it, and it radiates. You used to reach to connect, now you rest and they approach. Because what you've cultivated is not showmanship, it's resonance. It's the way your breath stays calm when others tighten, the way your shoulders don't need to rise to prove strength, the way your eyes don't dart, don't beg, don't search. You are here, rooted, and that rootedness buzzes with the unspoken electricity of someone who knows his body, his mind, his energy, and no longer wastes it. There are women who will stand near you and not understand why they can't quite think clearly, why their laughter feels different around you, why they want to speak slower, move with more intention, say more than they planned. That's the voltage. That's the quiet hum of a man who has taken his sexual energy and housed it, not in performance, but in presence. You do not use it to seduce. You do not weaponize it. You simply are, and the vibration is unmistakable. Because this energy is not in your touch, It's not in your words, it's not even in your scent or style, it's deeper. It's in the field around you, the field you've built through discipline, through restraint, through letting your hunger sharpen rather than consume. You've stopped releasing energy for escape. You started holding it in honor. You've stopped trying to impress the world and started becoming the kind of man who influences it just by being aligned. This voltage is not ego, it's essence. You are no longer emotionally homeless. You are no longer misusing your fire to light someone else's path while you wander in darkness. You are no longer looking to be completed. And that wholeness makes your frequency irresistible. The power in you now lives in stillness. It lives in how long you can sit with discomfort without abandoning yourself. It lives in how gently you can lead, how deeply you can hear, how clearly you can say no without guilt and yes without fear. That's voltage. That's what draws people in without a single word. You don't have to perform attraction, you embody it. And others can feel when a man is grounded in his sexual energy instead of enslaved by it. You have become a different kind of fire, chosen one. One that doesn't burn wild, one that doesn't flicker when the wind changes, one that doesn't need to be stoked by compliments or touched by flattery. You are lit from within, and that voltage, that frequency, that quiet hum, it reaches places that words never could. You don't try to spark desire anymore. You are the spark, chosen one. Your body has become a message in motion, a living vessel of alignment that speaks before you ever open your mouth. There was a time when you tried to speak through gestures, through postures borrowed from other men, trying to signal dominance, confidence, charm. But the body does not lie, and your body then was always restless, tense with seeking, with questions unasked, with longing not yet understood. Women could feel it. They felt the strain behind your shoulders, the silent plea in your stare, the undercurrent of neediness beneath your smile. Even if you masked it well, your energy betrayed your performance. Now everything has changed. Your body no longer performs, it embodies. It carries the weight of who you've become. It no longer leans in to get, but stands back to offer. Your movements have slowed, not from laziness, but from depth. You walk as one who doesn't need to chase, who doesn't collapse into conversations or attempt to inflate himself into attraction. Your steps are quiet, but they land. You are here. Not trying to impress, not trying to prove, but simply being. And that simple presence shakes the room. Your breath is different now. You breathe deeply, not because you've mastered breath work, but because you're no longer afraid to feel. You no longer carry shame in your spine. You no longer rush through interactions hoping to be seen. You see yourself, and that is enough. And so your body speaks not in grand gestures, but in small, sacred signals. In the way your shoulders relax even when eyes are on you. In the way you hold eye contact, not as a tool of dominance, but as an invitation. In the way you can sit still in discomfort without fidgeting, without reaching for a distraction, without needing to be rescued from your own presence. And women feel this. They feel it in the subtle details, the pace of your blink, the stillness of your mouth, the calm pulse behind your voice. You don't reach to touch them, but they feel touched. You don't lean to impress, but they feel impressed upon. Because your energy is not leaking anymore, it's contained, not clenched. You are full, and fullness has gravity. Not the pull of manipulation, but the pull of truth, of safety, of something unspoken and sacred. It's not your height or your build or your scent. It's not your grooming or your fashion or your reputation. It's the field you now carry with your body. The vibration of a man who has reintegrated his instincts with his higher nature. The man who does not kill his desire but commands it. The man who no longer shouts with his presence but grounds it. Your body now stands like a lighthouse, not a searchlight. You do not seek, you shine. And that radiance, that still and sacred awareness draws people in without confusion, without pressure, without calculation. They don't quite understand how they feel safe with you, why they feel curious, why they feel seen. But it's the way your body doesn't move from hunger anymore. It moves from choice, from discernment, from peace. And in a world where most men rush to be touched, to be desired, to be needed, your restraint is a sacred rebellion. You've stopped selling yourself to be accepted. You've become the man whose silence now says, I know my value, and I know what it means to offer it. Your body no longer asks, it declares, and that declaration, without a word, is the new language they long to hear. Chosen one, you now carry a tension that doesn't tear, it awakens. The kind of tension that does not come from pushing or pressing, but from presence so full, so disciplined, so real that it stirs something deeper than desire. It stirs remembrance. You've become the kind of man whose presence reminds others of something ancient, something lost. A way of being that is not controlled by impulse, but also not divorced from it. You are fire and form, storm and stillness. You walk the razor edge between power and peace, and that balance is sacred. In the past, your energy was either all in or all withdrawn. You either chased or you fled. You either drowned in longing or buried it beneath shame. But this new version of you, this man who feels without being ruled by it, this man who stands in front of attraction and doesn't flinch, doesn't flee, doesn't try to turn it into ego food, he is the man they don't expect. This sacred tension is not performance, it is earned. It's in the way you stand in conversation with a woman and feel the heat rise in the space between you, and instead of trying to tame it or take it or escape it, you hold it. Not for dominance, not for conquest, but as a sacred act. Because now you know, the energy between you is not something to devour, it's something to honor. And so you breathe with it, you let it rise. You do not run from it, you do not control it, you witness it. And that act alone brings them into the presence of something they didn't know they were starving for. You have become a man who can stand in the fire without trying to extinguish it. You don't interrupt chemistry with manipulation. You don't kill curiosity with agenda. You don't break connection by turning it into strategy. You let it breathe. And because of that, the women around you feel free. Not free to be objectified, not free to be collected, free to be real, free to feel, free to open, not because they're being seduced, but because they're being met. The sacred tension you carry now is alive in the pauses between your words, in the silence between your inhale and your reply, in the calm pulse of your gaze when she leans closer, hoping you'll take more, and you don't. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you've become a master of your energy, and masters don't scramble. Masters choose. Masters hold. There is an ache in the air around you now, not because you cause pain, but because you awaken longing. Not a shallow hunger, not a lustful flash, but a deep yearning to meet the kind of man whose attraction is pure, rooted, and spacious. And you are that man, chosen one. Not because you learned tricks, but because you unlearned need. Not because you became perfect, but because you embraced your fire, and you stopped offering it to those who only wanted warmth without depth. You've learned that some flames are not meant to consume, but to reveal. And your sacred tension reveals a man who has felt every temptation and chosen discipline. A man who has been through craving and come out with clarity. A man who does not run from beauty but does not bow to it either. That is what makes you irresistible. That is what makes your energy unforgettable. You are not trying to impress, you are not trying to conquer. You are simply here, alive, full, and unshakably true. And that truth, chosen one, is the most attractive thing in the universe. Chosen one, you have crossed a threshold few dare to approach, the sacred territory where desire is no longer a master, but a servant of your higher will. Once, your fire ran ungoverned, raw, and ravenous. It burned through glances, touched too quickly, spoke too loudly, begged too often. It surged through your bloodstream like an untamed stallion, demanding to be felt, seen, fed. But all fire that is not harnessed either destroys the vessel or burns the bridges it touches. You, chosen one, chose the painful path, the inward path, the path of refining, not repressing. There came a moment when you stood before your own hunger and did not feed it, when you held your own ache and did not numb it, when you chose to feel the full pressure of your longing and sit inside it, not to escape, not to project, but to understand. That moment broke you. And then it made you. Now, when you desire, you do not panic. You breathe, you remember, you honor it, but you do not kneel before it. You are no longer the man who loses himself in pursuit of being wanted. You are not driven by the eyes that land on you, by the flirtations tossed your way like hooks in the ocean of your ego. You are not seduced by attention. You are seduced by truth. And so your fire does not flare to please. It burns to illuminate. There is restraint in your hands now. Not fear, not shame, sovereignty. The kind of restraint that comes from a man who knows what he's capable of. but no longer needs to prove it. You do not take what is offered simply because it's offered. You pause, you feel, you discern, because you are no longer a beggar of sensation, you are a guardian of meaning. And that discipline, that invisible line between your desire and your action, is a power few understand. It's not the absence of fire that makes you strong, it is the containment of it. You carry within you the ability to touch, to awaken, to arouse, but you choose when and how. You don't reach to consume, you reach to connect. And that kind of touch, when it comes, becomes unforgettable. Not because of technique, but because of energy. The energy of a man who has held his own flame so long that when he shares it, it is sacred. This restraint is not about denying who you are. It's about honoring who you are. It's about holding your masculine hunger like a chalice, not spilling it for temporary thrills or weak affirmations. Your restraint creates space. Your restraint builds trust. Your restraint declares, I have tasted my own power, and I no longer use it to conquer. I use it to elevate. And women feel this. Even when they cannot name it, they feel the boundary inside you, the still line that says, you are safe with me, even in your beauty. I do not worship it, I witness it. That witnessing is what ignites deeper attraction. Not because it flatters, but because it liberates. You've become the man who doesn't need to possess to enjoy, who doesn't need to take to feel full, who doesn't need to be desired to know he is desirable. That is the flame of restraint. And in that flame, you've become not less of a man, but more. You are the rare one now, the one who feels it all and chooses presence over pleasure, the one who can spark desire and walk away without punishment, the one who can hold space for fire without needing to burn with it. That is what they sense in you now. That is why they stare. That is why they stay. Chosen one, your heart has become something steady, something vast, something both wild and deeply reliable. You have entered into the place where masculine energy is no longer a costume you wear, but the sacred pulse that moves through your every breath. This is not about dominance. This is not about control. This is about presence, about the unshakable calm that comes when you have faced your shadow and stood firm. You do not need to roar anymore. You do not need to demand or raise your voice, because now, the pulse of your masculinity speaks louder than your words ever could. It lives in your posture, in the grounded rhythm of your walk, in the stillness you carry even when the world around you is trembling. You have become the axis upon which the room realigns. There was a time when you misunderstood what it meant to be a man. You were told it meant conquering, performing, taking, that to be attractive you had to posture, that to be respected you had to intimidate. But that version of masculinity was hollow. It cracked under the pressure of truth. It collapsed in the presence of intimacy. You tried it. It left you more alone than ever. Now, chosen one, you no longer look outside to define yourself. You draw from a deeper well, a spiritual well, a source beyond ego. And in that still reservoir of self-awareness, a new masculinity was born in you. Not loud, but magnetic. Not imposing, but irresistible. Because now, when you look into someone's eyes, they feel not a man trying to be powerful, but a man who knows he is. This pulse does not come from testosterone alone. It comes from truth, from emotional integrity, from spiritual maturity, from the choice to lead without pushing, from the willingness to stand alone rather than betray your soul, from the discipline to hold your energy when the world tells you to spend it, from the grace to receive desire without becoming drunk on it. And when women stand in your presence now, they feel something they do not find often. They feel a container, not a trap, not a net, a vessel, a man who can hold intensity without collapsing, who can feel beauty without chasing it, who can meet softness with strength and strength with softness. Your masculinity does not overpower, it grounds. It does not devour, it blesses. And that energy is not only rare, it is divine. You are the man who can kiss without claiming, who can touch without tangling, who can offer space without fear of losing. Because you are no longer seduced by the external, you are anchored in the internal. The pulse within you has harmonized with something eternal. You've come into resonance with your purpose, your source, your spirit. And that resonance carries through your entire being. This is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming present. This is not about being the strongest in the room. It's about being the clearest, and in your clarity, you lead. Not with rules, with rhythm. Not with commands, with consistency. You are not trying to make an impression anymore. You are the impression. You don't pursue attraction. You emanate truth. And in a world where many men are still searching for their center, you've become the lighthouse that shows what it looks like to live from it. You are the pulse now, the heartbeat of what true masculinity can feel like when it's no longer afraid of its power or ashamed of its softness. And for those who meet you, chosen one, it is unforgettable. Chosen one, you have become an invitation without ever needing to ask. You are no longer the one trying to convince anyone to notice you. There is no persuasion in your energy, no desperation in your glance, no hidden script behind your silence. Instead, your presence itself has become an unspoken gesture that says, I am here, and if you wish to step closer, you may. You don't reach, yet you are felt. You don't chase, yet they follow. Not because of performance, but because of permission. The permission you give others simply by being unashamed of your own gravity. You've come into an awareness of your worth that doesn't need validation. You no longer search for mirrors in others. You've built your own reflection within. And so, without words, your body speaks. I know myself. You do not have to say what you are. You embody it. You do not have to explain what you offer. You emanate it. And when you walk into a space, something in the air recognizes you before the people do. It's subtle, it's ancient, it's felt before it's understood. It bypasses logic and lands directly in the body, the breath, especially in hers. She doesn't know why she stands straighter when you enter the room, why she fidgets more around you, why her laughter changes, why silence feels fuller when she's near you. But it's because you have become an invitation to presence, to depth, to truth. She senses that you will not flatter her illusions nor fall for yours. You have no need to possess her because you do not lack yourself. And that kind of self-ownership is rare. Your energy no longer feels like bait. It feels like space, a field, a pause, a sanctuary. You are not inviting women into seduction. You are inviting them into remembrance of their own magnetism, their own truth, their own openness. Because when they feel your groundedness, it gives them permission to unfold. Not because you demand it, but because you are safe enough to hold it, clear enough to reflect it, strong enough not to consume it. You've learned that real attraction begins in stillness, in the way you do not hurry the moment, in the way you are unshaken by tension, in the way you welcome vulnerability, not as a trap, but as a bridge. You can look into her and not flinch. You can feel her attraction and not misuse it. You can witness her power and not fear it. That balance, that centered, quiet knowing is what draws her in, not to be conquered, not to be collected, but to be met. And that meeting begins without touch, without flirtation, without even a word. It begins in your being, because you have trained your energy to speak where language ends. You have surrendered your need to be impressive, and in doing so, you have become irresistible. You have made peace with your longing, and now it is no longer wild, it is radiant. Women sense the heat inside you, but they are not scorched by it. They are warmed, softened, disarmed. You have become the man whose presence makes others question their own. The man who speaks softly but leaves echoes. The man who listens not with ears alone, but with stillness. And that stillness is magnetic. Because in a world of constant noise, you have become silence. Not emptiness, depth, not absence, reverence. You don't ask to be chosen anymore. You are the invitation. And that invitation is written in the language of truth. Chosen one, you no longer enter rooms with the intent to shake them. Yet they tremble. You no longer move to dominate, and yet your presence dominates effortlessly. Not with volume, not with bravado, but with peace. With a calm that makes others aware of the noise inside themselves. You've become the man who makes others quiet down just to feel what you're carrying. Because what you carry is rare. Peace, real peace, is not passivity. It is not withdrawal. It is not indifference. It is power and stillness. It is certainty without explanation. It is clarity that does not seek applause. And you, chosen one, have become a master of that kind of peace. It wasn't gifted to you. You earned it. You bled for it. You sat in nights alone, wept through old patterns, broke your own cycles, held your own shadows, and you emerged with a calm that no one can take from you. Now when women come near you, they feel something deeper than attraction. They feel stability, they feel home. Not because you give them what they want, but because you embody what they forgot they needed. A man who doesn't rush, doesn't react, doesn't spiral. A man who listens not just to words, but to frequency. A man who doesn't just understand emotion, but holds it like a sacred flame without being burned. Your peace is your gravity. Your peace is your power. Because in a world of men who are pulled by urges, drowned by insecurity, fueled by performance, you are an anchor. You do not rise and fall with attention. You do not inflate under praise or deflate under silence. You are steady, and that steadiness is divine. This peace is not quietness, it's presence. The way you hold yourself when eyes are on you, the way you respond instead of react, the way you slow the pace of every interaction, not to control it, but to honor it. You've become so whole within yourself that there is no rush to take, no need to impress, no craving to be seen. You already are. And they see that. They feel that. Even women who used to chase chaos find themselves pausing in your presence, not because you triggered them, but because you didn't. You didn't try to fix them. You didn't try to save them. You simply stood there as yourself, with your silence, with your warmth, with your unshakable stillness. And that stillness whispered, "You don't need to perform here." You see, chosen one, peace is not the absence of power, it is the refinement of it. And you've become the kind of man whose peace is so deep, it awakens longing. Not lust, not conquest, but the yearning to be in the presence of truth. You are the man whose eyes no longer beg to be wanted. You are the man whose hands no longer grab without reverence. You are the man whose heart no longer fears solitude, because it has become sacred space. And in that sacred space, others soften, others remember, others wonder how they've lived without that frequency. You don't offer chaos anymore. You offer peace. And peace, when truly embodied, is the most powerful force a man can carry. Chosen one, you have become the man whose absence is as felt as his arrival. When you walk into a space, something shifts. But what's even more extraordinary now is what happens when you leave. You don't disappear like a forgotten whisper. You remain, in the silence after the laughter fades, in the scent of the stillness you carried, in the way others instinctively compare every new presence to yours and feel the quiet disappointment. Your presence doesn't just enter a room anymore, it redefines it. That is the echo of your presence. And it wasn't always so. You remember the days when you felt invisible unless you tried hard to be seen. You remember when your self-worth was as fragile as the reaction you received from women. You remember the hollow validation of shallow flirtation, the anxiety beneath every social gesture, the endless craving to be noticed, admired, chosen. It's almost foreign to you now, who you were, because the man you've become is no longer waiting to be chosen. He is the choosing. You've discovered that energy cannot lie. And when your energy is integrated, whole, and owned, it speaks louder than appearance, than charm, than words. That is why your presence lingers long after you leave. Because you no longer leave people with thoughts alone. You leave them with sensation. A visceral memory of safety, curiosity, and intensity, all woven into the subtle thread of your stillness. You have become a man who does not fill space, he influences it. You don't have to be loud, you don't have to lead with seduction. You don't have to flash smiles like bait, because you have cultivated a field so grounded that when people step into it, they feel relief without understanding why. You've become the kind of man that women don't just remember, they reconsider. You awaken something not in their bodies first, but in their nervous systems. They relax around you. They feel seen without performance. They feel energized, not drained. They feel curious, not anxious. And when you're gone, that memory of ease stays. Because you no longer pretend, you no longer chase, you no longer apologize for your desire, but you also no longer weaponize it. You simply hold it. And that holding is what creates the echo. The subtle question that follows after you go, what was that? You've become a mirror that reflects not their image, but their truth. A man who does not offer illusions. A man who does not create pressure. A man who can be fully present without expectation. That is why your presence echoes. Because it is rare to meet someone who does not need to take, yet makes others feel more whole. You don't leave them wanting more because you teased them. You leave them wanting more because you reminded them of who they could be around someone who sees without controlling, who feels without consuming, who witnesses without agenda. That is the echo. That is the gift, and it's the result of every moment you chose to become still instead of reactive, disciplined instead of indulgent, awake instead of desperate. Now when they hear your name, they remember the calm in their chest, the way time slowed, the way they didn't have to be anyone else to feel welcomed. That is legacy, that is magnetism, that is the presence that doesn't fade. You've become unforgettable, not because you took center stage, but because you carried truth into the room and left it behind like a signature that no one can forge.